So this is a message for a parent who is dyslexic and you're helping your child. So what are you going to need? You're going to need the apps. You're going to need a monster mat, which are the speech sound monsters are just phonetic symbols for kids, but great for you because the work we're going to be doing is actually going to be creating new connections in your brain as well. And we need the spelling clouds in some form, whether it's the spelling cloud keyring, you've got a speech sound wall, whatever. This is the A3 version. It's indestructible. It's got all the clouds, it's got the chants at the back, which are your basic phonics. Unfortunately, it's not really your basic phonics, it's going to be the best help for you. But let's just see how the I Can Read Without You lessons online are going to help, the SSP Spelling Piano app, and particularly the monster routine. This is going to be really, really important. Okay, so because you're dyslexic, all sorts of issues, no one dyslexic person is the same, like being on the spectrum. However, what I will know if you're dyslexic is that you'll have poor phonemic awareness. That means you really struggle to hear the sounds in words. So you may be able to read pretty pretty well. You might be able to read and especially you'll use lots of context and all the other clues because an underlying difficulty you have is hearing those speech sounds, and it's very difficult then to decode, to map the phonemes to graphemes if you can't hear the sounds, and when you're reading it's going to be easier because it's already there, but the main issue for you is spelling, because if you didn't know, if you weren't shown that word and you were just to say, for example, can you spell coronavirus, you would be like, okay, and you would struggle to hear those sounds. It's nothing to do with your actual hearing, it's the processing of sounds. So what we do with children, and with when I'm teaching adults as well, everything about this approach, the Speech Sound Picks approach, SSP, is all about meeting the needs of everybody. It doesn't matter how old you are. So so the monster routine is going to be brilliant for you because it's going to give you a structure. So if you had to think about spelling the word coronavirus, now I would say to you, have a look at it first if you want. That's what kids will do. They'll try and memorize it, whatever else. I'll say, look at it if you want, but that doesn't really, that could actually hurt you because you might get blinded by the letters. And when I talked about your basic phonics, in basic phonics, that's really, I use basic phonics just as the way to teach how we map what reading and spelling is. But you think about basic phonics in here, and if you were to use basic phonics the way most synthetic phonics programs are taught, you go k, a, n, the, I, s, and you because you've got trouble with blending. Anyway, you probably wouldn't remember all of those sounds to the end to blend them together if there's working memory issues, whatever. But also blending those sounds, those aren't actually the sounds that are used when we say the word, when we say coronavirus. So your basic phonics, the children children who are learning to read and spell that just keep having this phonics, which is A for apple or ant, whatever else. That's fine for specific skills, but that's only a quarter of the code. This is the real code. This is the kind of stuff we see all the time. Okay, so the monster routine. So what I want you to do is we're actually going to just rub that off to start off with. Okay, so the monster routine is like this, and it doesn't matter if you get it right, wrong, because the routine will help you sort out where you got it wrong and learn. It's about learning. So you would think, okay, coronavirus. Okay, so we're going to duck hand it. Coronavirus, and you're going to forget letters, just think about the sounds. Corona, and you can keep going back. Corona, corona, coronavirus, corona, coronavirus. That's what it is. It's not a case of, if you had brilliant phonemic awareness, you'll just do it straight off. Coronavirus, and good working memory because it's quite long. And so you would have no problem. But if you're dyslexic, you struggle to hear those sounds, and that's quite long. Now you could split it up, this is the only time I ever use syllables. So if you can split into syllables, which not necessarily, it doesn't mean you necessarily can, but if you've had support for dyslexia, often they've done loads on syllables. So you'll have gone coronavirus, and you could do a line for each syllable and then do the lines for the speech sounds. But don't worry about that at the moment. Let's just do the word as intended. Okay, so we just duck-handed it. So now what we're going to do is to put the speech sound lines, because that's where we're mapping. It's like a jigsaw. It's like anything. We're just mapping out what we're going to do. We're organising it. It's very mathematical. So corona, a corona. Okay, so now we're going to make it, we're going to start talking on paper. So those speech sounds on paper. And this is easier now because now we can actually keep going back. Forgot where I am. Corona, coronavirus, corona, lost where I am again. Coronavirus. I'm just showing you the process. Coronavirus. Okay, so and that's the process. Take as long as you want doing that, doing your duck hands, lines, numbers. The people with dyslexia are going to take a lot longer because obviously it's tracking what are those sounds. I'm not sure about those sounds, and that's why we start off with shorter words. Corona. So now, and this is going to be difficult if you've never done it before, you might just do the numbers, but the idea is that you can actually do the numbers while saying the sounds. These are speech sound numbers. Coronavirus. So now we've got it mapped out, and even if you haven't got it right because you're missing out sounds or whatever else, the chances are you will have picked up on some of the sounds that you've missed out. And even if you didn't, it doesn't matter at the moment, because we're going to, on this next stage, we're going to put the speech sound monsters, which are just characters for those speech sounds. And this stage is really important because if anyone was watching you, they would see the sounds you're hearing. You might say a sound, but think you're hearing a different sound. You know, there's all sorts of difficulties when you have poor phonemic awareness. So this is our assessment tool now. Well, it was our assessment tool already to see which sounds you can, how many sounds you can hear. Now we're seeing which sounds you can hear. Okay, so corona, so k, and this is why the children learn the speech sound monsters really quickly. K. And this is where we think, oh, is she going to choose the schwa there, or is she going to go corona? K, that's the schwa is the sound. K. Oh, I haven't got my pot, have I? Some spare ones. I'm sure they're going to need some extra ones. K, O. So this is the sound O. So that's just a phonetic symbol. That means that when you go to check this in a minute, you'll see the phonetic symbol and you'll be able to map it up with the speech sound monsters. So you don't need to learn the phonetic symbols, just learn the monsters really quickly. And children do. I mean, think about how many sight words children are supposed to memorize. You know, that's lots of whole words with different shapes and different symbols, whatever. This is just the whole code. These are all the speech sounds with just a fun monster the children learn really quickly. So, k, O, corona, corona, corona. Well, let's put the there. Corona, corona, corona. Is it another schwa? Corona. I'm just putting the there because I haven't got another schwa. I haven't got my pot. Okay, v. Where's our v? V. I. So this is the I monster. I. So can't do it at the same time. I. That's my I monster. The sound I. K, O, N, V, I, So I need a K, O, N, V, I, And we haven't got one, so we just get our spares. Corona, virus. Now here it is an it's just a schwa, and then ends up. Okay, so we've now built, we've done the speech sounds, we've mapped it out, we've shown the speech sounds, which is good for anyone watching you to see which speech sounds you've done. You've got it mapped out, and this work is what's essential for dyslexic learners. That's why I introduced the monsters for my non-verbal kids, because they couldn't tell me the sound, so they needed to be able to show me, and I didn't want them using cued articulation because I wanted them using their hands for duck hands, but also dyslexic learners because I can see exactly which sounds you're hearing. So here we've got coronavirus. Okay, so now at this point, that's when you can check the monsters. Now, the problem with reading and spelling is that our spoken language can often be slightly different than our written language. For example, think about if you're in Australia, if I'm saying ant to the children with the sounds ant, let me just show you with the monster sounds. So with spelling, the sounds that we universally agree for phonics for the word ant, ant, that's fine, but Australian children don't say ant. They'll more likely say ant, ant. Some of them are really, you know, ant. But it's not this sound. Oops, it's not. So even in the very early stages of phonics, that very early stages, when we're just doing this set of graphemes and we're just saying that represents s, at, in this level, when the children are doing some of these words, you'll hear them go atant, ant, put-atin, pen. So it's a different pronunciation. So right from the beginning, that's why we address it. So some of the children, you'll see, you know, what one of the parents will go, pen, and the child will go put-atin, pen. And the parent wonders why. Well, it's because that's what they can hear. And what we're doing is thinking about how we hear. In phonics programs, what the children learn is the system. Whereas what we want them to understand is, well, the system is often confusing. So let's understand the system and let's work it. Let's work out solutions. Okay, so coronavirus. So now let's just play it. We chose didn't we? Coronavirus. So now we'll go to phonetics.com or Macmillan, and sometimes these can be different, and they will show those funny phonetic symbols. Unfortunately, it doesn't show where they split, but so can you see the k that we had first? Yes, that is it. K, it's a schwa. There's the schwa. Can you see the phonetic symbol? Yes. Oh, you see that kind of funny E and the U there? That's the representation for the O. O. So we've got K, O. And every time you go back, it's reinforcing that phonemic awareness, which is the bit that the dyslexic person will have missed. Corona, and then we've got the bit there. So here, corona. So here we should have actually put a schwa there, shouldn't we? So what we'll do is put that one back and we'll do the spelling code. So even if you said it like that, we still have to use the spelling code, the Speechline King's code, because we're learning to spell. Now I'm just going to put a Miss Emma card there, which means it's a placeholder for any sound that you want it to be, just because I don't think I've got another schwa in that pot. And there's so many schwas in words that once you start doing this, you'll think, oh my goodness me, this schwa is everywhere. And nobody's ever talked to me about the schwa before. No wonder I was struggling. Now, if you'll have seen Bernice shares, she does some fantastic work with her class, and she shared her class schwa cloud. Every time you find a word with the schwa, put the sound pick in there with the example word and see how many you find by the end of the year. Because like I said, the schwa is used so often, and it's really, really important that you look at it, identify it, and see the representations for the schwa. And a lot of dyslexic learners that I have very quickly do really well because I changed the way they're being taught, because they were instructional casualties. What needed to change was not the child, but the teaching. So k, o, n, v. So we're likely to see, yeah, there's the v. Where's the v phonetic symbol? V. I, which is like, you see that AI there? That's the I. AI, that's the I sound, the phonetic symbol for I. And then the schwa again, and the s, coronavirus. So with the spelling code, these are the phonetic symbols, these are the speech sound monsters. Now, what I would say now is that you have a look at the word. So write the word up here or have a look at it. Coronavirus. Okay, so we've done the hard work, which is the listening for the sounds, mapping it out, whatever else. Now look at the word, and this is what you would do with your child as well. You just go through this process and say, well, I don't know how to spell it, I'm going to check. So have a look at how it's actually spelt and then map it, because every letter is used. Every letter has a job. So, okay, so that's the K. That's the schwa, the O is the schwa. So now we're using letter names because letter names don't make sounds unless they're in a word. And here we've got to think about, okay, the letter O represents that sound. The letter R represents that sound. The letter O represents that O sound. The letter N represents that sound. The letter A represents the sound. So you wouldn't say, what about the A, and then put it there, because here it doesn't represent A, it represents the schwa sound. V, the V represents the the I represents the I sound. The R, and think about as well, letter names I and sounds I can be different. You know, you can have the I sound represented by different letters that hasn't even got an I in it. Think about the word I. That's the letter name I. That's his name. Can be the sound I can be represented by something that hasn't even got an I in it. That's why our written code is so difficult. There are so many things, and that's why we introduce them in a scaffolded way, systematic way, to introduce concepts so the brain understands, oh, okay, there's a discrepancy. We're not teaching them every discrepancy, every way. You know, we're teaching them the skills. It's like that whole thing about, you know, do you give children, do you give a village lots of bread, or do you give them seeds? Well, most phonics program, you're just giving them the bread and saying, here it is, learn it, you know, become reliant, become... You know, it's kind of learnt helplessness. Whereas what we're going to do is let's give you seeds. You can do it yourself and you can find better ways of doing it and what have you. But you're part of the process of exploring how everything works, and you'll become independent and resilient, self-reliant. Okay, so coronavirus. So now here we've mapped it. This is code mapping. Code mapping is where you're mapping the sounds, phonemes to graphemes.
Good girl. And
Skylar. I think you are so
good job.
The kind.
Oh, you forgot a word.
And
Oh. Duck and end.
the the and wait, O, 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 I, O, O, love, you, and then kind of the love hearts.
Good job.
Monster mapping is where you're mapping the phonemes to graphemes using the, the monsters as phonetic symbols for kids. So this process every time of basically say the word coronavirus, duck hands, lines, numbers, monsters. So say it, duck hands, lines, speech sound lines, speech sound numbers, then monsters, then look at the word, look at word, and now map. So that's the process, and you're playing it after every time. So when I say play it, I mean when the lines are there, you go back and you play it just to check. It's just a reinforcement. But this is the monster routine, and we use this from the beginning with, sip, ant, tip, whatever, to get used to the routine. Say it, duck hands, lines, numbers, monsters, look at the word, map it. And of course, if it's a word that the children should know how to spell, then just take this bit out. So if it's a word that they should have spelt for their spelling, that they're learning to be able to spell, first of all do it like this to learn it, then do it without the word to practice it. So when you got to this stage, then you would push it up and put what you think, because you're reinforcing it. 2 different stages. Because now what we do is we say, okay, is there anything in here that you didn't already know? What have you learnt? So not only have we been mapping the word to learn the word to spell or to explore it, whatever, we're thinking, what's different? So like here, you might have said, I didn't know the O could be a representation for the schwa. Well, that's why, as I say, you use the schwa cloud, because put it in the schwa cloud. But there might have been something other than the schwa ones. I can't think if there's anything there the child would say, oh, I don't know that one. Let's say, just for the example, so let's say they said, oh, look, there's the letter I. I didn't know the letter I could represent the sound I. I thought it was just I. So then you would say, oh, well, let's have a look at the I cloud. There's the I cloud, there's Munster I, and there's the I in there. Look at all these choices. So whilst we're there looking at this one that the child hadn't seen before, or you might not have realised before, think about if you were having some orange juice. Where's my pen gone? Okay, let's supposing you were having some orange juice, and then you're just at the kitchen table and you just think, oh, let's map it. Orange. We know it's orange juice, and it's, pretty good way of working out that's orange, because we can see oranges all over the card. Okay, so orange, orange. You might not have the monsters with you. You might just be in the supermarket. So you say, oh, let's map it. Orange. Every letter has a job. Orange. So orange. Orange. So in this case, you might have said, oh, I didn't know the A could be a representation for the I. So you would go to the I cloud and say, oh, it is in there. Look, oh, look, the word is orange. So whilst you're there, have a look at the other ones as well. Or you might say, oh, I didn't know a GE could be the representation for the J. So there's our J cloud. J, like gentle, J, jellyfish, what have you. You might have said, oh, I didn't know. So where's the GE? There it is. What's the example word? The example word in here is large. Okay, so just because we had orange juice for our breakfast, now we've learnt 2 different mapping patterns that we weren't aware of before. And you aren't going to be aware of within your phonics. So you think about the limitations of phonics program if it takes them 2 years to learn all the graphemes that they need to pass the UK phonics test. In 2 years, if at the same time they're not exploring all of the other choices, then they might be able to pass the phonics test, but they're not going to read and spell. That's why I want them out of that explicit phonics. Unless there's an intellectual impairment, I wanted them out of that before the end of their first year of school, their prep year. In order to pass the phonics test, which basically, I mean, in order to recognise all those graphemes within their first prep year, the app you need is the SSP Spelling Piano app. They're spelling the words, they're spelling words using those target graphemes, they're reading words using those target graphemes. The spelling is the most important part. The spelling is the most important part because it goes speech to print. So we're thinking, what are the sounds? Okay, what represents the B there?
B.
What represents the there? Where's my What represents my Z there? Now, if they do the wrong one, so they go, nothing happens. They've got to get the right one.
Z. B-A-Z. Buzz.
Now, what I am actually asking
Buzz.
What I am actually asking, and you can do it in Monsters as well. What I am actually asking the developer to do is that after you see them, you hear the word before you go to the next screen. So,
Ship.
okay, so we're checking first of all, we know this is the word ship. So to practice the Monsters, so my 3-year-olds are doing this, they're building the word ship in. So it needs to say ship there before they see the sound picks. So use the SSP Spelling Piano app to learn these high frequency graphemes for reading and spelling really, really quickly and easily, using lots and lots of different activities. This is interactive, but you'll also use the monster mapping app for the lessons, and this is where the children learn how to do all of these. So the parent videos are good because the parent ones, let's see the grown-up ones, grown-up tips, that's just for you, that just helps you with things like, you know, accents. Grown-ups, tips, accents. So I'm going to put this video in here. But in here, this is how you don't have to teach the child the monster routine. It's in these lessons, the monster routine with just the monsters. So this is when they're just doing duck, hands, lions, numbers, monsters. That's it. Don't think about the letters. And then we build it up round about here when we're introducing the letters, introducing concepts like nest. They haven't been introduced to the yet because the is in the purple code level. But that doesn't mean we don't look at words with all of those other graphemes in. Now, if you're using a synthetic phonics program, they'll say, no, you can't. You can only use that and a few high frequency words because we don't want to overload them. And I'm just saying that's absolute rubbish. Drawing sound picks. Uppercase letters. Yeah, so these lessons. So where's my monster routine? Sorry, I must have just gone past it. Yeah, so monster routine, this is where it's just the monsters. Here's the monster routine. So when it's got a little dot, it means extension of that lesson. So the monster routine with sound picks. So this is where, okay, once you can see your child doing duck, hands, lines, numbers, monsters, don't move on until they can do that and they're confident, because you don't want to overload them. So now we're going to add in the sound picks when they can. And this is just showing different examples. So here's one with those sapin green code level sound picks, but here's with Peppa Pig. So Peppa, that's got a schwa there, Peppa Pig. It's important that you use words they want because the routine doesn't limit them, and I'll keep adding lots and lots more of that. It just means that I can put them in and you know, okay, it's just an extension, it's just another example of that particular activity. So the project lessons in the SSP monster mapping app is vital. The school app at the moment has all of this for children with the school app. It's a different app. I will be adding those in. And as I say, you need this and this, and you need the SSP Spelling Piano app as well. And the Monster Sounds app from James Fisher, which means you could just spell whatever words you want. So that's why it's so important to map words, even if you haven't got the monsters there with you. If you had the monsters there with you, when you came to the A, they would see the I monster there. Orange. So map words. If you know what the word is, it's easy. Duck hand and map it. Every letter has a job. And if you're exploring words or words to remember for a spelling test or whatever else, do the monster routine. So that's my tip. And my tip would be to use words that your child loves and that can talk about. Kai is now going to talk about coronavirus.
Today we're going to talk about coronavirus. Coronavirus is a very deadly virus, and they can spread really quickly. And the worst thing about coronavirus is that it can take over the immune systems like brain, which means it makes them into a fighting frenzy. There are two things that can mostly become frenzies. One of them are neutrophils, other ones are the T cells. But the more they take over their brains, the more like bad the more the lung cells they kill. And not only that, it can kill you. There are two spreads, fast spread and slow spread. I mean, like, if you want to find out more, maybe check on Kurtz's and you'll find out more about it. But it says that it was lots of times deadlier than flu. So be super careful if you be super careful if you're infected. You don't want a fast spread. So fast spread is bad, but slow spread is okay-ish. I'm done.